So this coming Monday, around 2:30 in the afternoon on the West Coast, 5:30 p.m. East Coast time, we're on the new moon in the early degrees, very early degrees of Capricorn. And I thought I would make a video to explain that this is a really good period to set directions going forward, definitely for the lunar cycle, which is approximately a month, but also potentially for the entire year, since it coincides with pretty much the entry point of 2025. And the sign is particularly appropriate because Capricorn energy thrives on setting goals. It's the sign that is at the top of the chart in a natural chart with Aries rising, the chart of, strictly speaking, it's career, but you could also see it as any aspiration, anything you're moving toward. And perhaps even more importantly, the period preceding the new moon sign, which is what we're in now, meaning today, tomorrow, Sunday, and even to some extent on Monday, because the moon is around the middle of the day. That period is very good for reflection, for pondering what exactly you might want to try to do over the next lunar month and over the next year, potentially. This is why, for example, in bigger lunar cycles, when you're looking at the progressed lunar cycle, where a new moon happens every 30 years, it's really infrequent, but the 2 to 3 years before the new moon tend to be internalized, letting go years in preparation for what comes around the new moon. Here it's compressed into a matter of days, but it makes those pre-lunar days, pre-new moon days, very, very useful. Now, in terms of the energy of the sign, the advice is to be as practical as you can be. For example, people will often set resolutions, but they make big goals, lots of idealism, and then they may not be able to follow through on what they intended. So a much better approach is to set really practical goals that you're pretty sure you can accomplish. Because what happens is, if you try something and you're able to get there, that'll generate something else. It's almost a given that as you are seeing success in the one or two things that you think maybe they're a little bit out of reach, but they're doable, then you can do something else. That's also part of, a very big part of the planet that rules Capricorn, namely Saturn. Saturn works steadily, slowly, strategically, and it also rules inertia on the downside, meaning a kind of paralysis, but the same concept on the other side is momentum. When something gets going, it has a better chance to continue. Hence, if you set up one or two important things and you work toward them, then not just for that lunar month, but potentially for the whole year, you may be setting something up that will be of great benefit. Now, the thing is, to the extent that you know what you need to do or that you want to do, great, then you're all set, you tune into that. But sometimes when it comes to these things, people will think, oh, I've heard this before, this whole goal setting and striving and effort, I'm just so tired of that, and besides, I've already experimented with it and it didn't work. In that case, what you could do, which in some ways is even more powerful, is to focus on Saturn. Yes, of course, it's a Capricorn moon, So Saturn is the sense that you're going to do something, you're going to focus on something, you're going to work on something. But what you can work on is linking it to Jupiter. Now Jupiter would apply if a person said, okay, I'm going to work on making more money so I can have more freedom to do more things in my life. That would be Saturn working toward Jupiter on that level. But in the purest sense, Jupiter, underneath it all, is the peace and relaxation and freedom you feel from, in that case, having more money. But you don't have to be trying to acquire money and property or anything else. You can simply set your goal to develop greater relaxation, greater calm for the month and then for the year, which I suspect may not be a bad idea, because it's looking more and more like 2025 will probably be a pretty turbulent year, and the greatest asset then becomes your own personal level of composure that you've developed. And a really simple practice that would start to build this and make it a part of your life is to say something like 10 minutes a day, even 5 minutes if you think 10 is too much, or 15 if you're a little more ambitious. Just do something really easy, really doable, but that will link Saturn to Jupiter, which is to, for example, lie on the floor on a couch and just spend that period of time consciously relaxing your body. The doing, the focus, is the Saturn, plus the showing up to do it at all. And then the result is the Jupiter. And if you ask, well, how is that done? It's just your mind tuning into your body. And even something like telling yourself, okay, I'm relaxing my facial muscles. You can feel some of that change, and trust your mind to accomplish that. It's the idea of gathering your attention. You're not lying there or sitting there and thinking. You are using your attention to guide your mind to do this kind of thing. So now what is happening is you're relaxing, you're connecting your body and mind together, and if you persist with this day after day after day, for example, for a lunar cycle, then it itself will start to teach you. You will notice that your inner being, your inner spirit, your inner guidance, are brought into the foreground, and they start to guide you. And if you can accomplish any kind of momentum over a period of the lunar cycle, the odds improve that you'll continue for the rest of the year. And so in doing this, you are linking the two biggest planets in the solar system, Saturn and Jupiter. In this case, the moon happens to be more Saturn connected, which in fact makes a lot of sense, because as I often say to people, Jupiter itself doesn't like working. If you want to do something, get something done, you need the Saturn. But ironically, you're using it to connect to the relaxing principle of Jupiter. Something else I'll say is that if for any reason you hear this message and you try to do something, and then you get distracted, you get depressed, anything happens that causes you to stop doing it for a day or two, the simple solution is just return when you remember, or even when your mood improves. Because imagine a person that says, okay, I'll do this for the next 30 days, and then they start and they miss some days, then they do a day or two, they miss some more days. At the end of the month, they've only done 5 or 6 days. That'll still be a lot better than if you did no days, because you'll still have some level of momentum. And the other thing is, any mistake, failure, don't be hard on yourself. Just look at it with detachment and composure, which is the very thing you're trying to develop, and continue when you're ready to do it. This, by the way, is often the type of instruction you get to reach deep levels of meditation, which would be some kind of focus on something, which in fact is the Saturn then linking to Jupiter to bring about expansion and relaxation. But the way it is explained is, do it, and then if you forget, just return. Like for example, you are focusing on something and then your mind wanders and your mind is somewhere else even for 5 or 10 minutes. As soon as you remember, come back. And what happens when you continue long enough doing this is your mind will get stronger and stronger and you will have more and more consistency. But in all Saturn things, and this is a Capricorn new moon, it's slow, steady progress. That's what gets you there. Rather than thinking, I want it to happen immediately, which of course I know if you're a fire sign, like Aries especially, Leo and Sagittarius, there's an impatience. I want things to work immediately. Saturnian energy works slowly, but in the end, the main reason it's more powerful is that the momentum you build enhances the chances that you'll stick to it. It'll become a habit. In astrology, ironically, in terms of what we're talking about here, the Moon-Saturn polarity, there are many polarities in astrology, but Moon and Saturn, Moon ruling Cancer, Saturn ruling Capricorn, is the habit axis. So at the Moon level, it's a daily thing you're doing, but then it becomes more solid, more, you could say it reaches the bone level. Saturn rules bones and teeth in the body, but psychologically it's the idea of something crystallizing and becoming a major asset in your life. All right, I'll stop there, and I want to thank everyone for your support on this channel. I hope to make lots of videos in 2025, and I wish everyone happy and very prosperous 2025.